We're rolling. Believe introductions on order. I am Tyler Thomas and or delete me. I own a 1985 Honda Prelude, of which it's nearly all original parts. I am its second owner with about 170k on the clock, 170k miles, and it is the best car I've ever owned. This channel is predominantly to record my ownership of it, as well as any projects I end up doing to different cars down the line. The details of the car are double wishbone suspension, 4 disc brakes, of course, one on each wheel. This is the first year that had disc brakes in the rear. It has a dual carbureted 1.8 liter motor known as the A18 engine, mated to a 5-speed manual transmission. In this particular one, some models came with a 4-speed automatic. Car itself puts out about 110 horsepower at probably about 6k RPM. Redline is at 6k, rev limiter at 8k because Honda. The driving experience is outstanding. Just stiff enough to let you feel sporty, but comfortable. Definitely one of Honda's better cars, in my opinion. The lighting? No. The build quality is no comment. I have a feeling that in its heyday, it was a luxury sports car. Wow. Okay, lighting, not optional anymore. But it is not in its day. It is about 37 years old. So anything that was made out of rubber is now made out of dust. Anything that is plastic is badly, but it is trying its best. And honestly, 37 years without an enthusiast owner, it's in great condition. Built in Japan. Surprisingly, most Hondas made for the USDM market, they were built in Ontario, Canada, to prevent import duties. But for some reason, this one they decided to build in Japan, in Osaka, if I'm not mistaken. Then it was imported to the States, I believe directly to Seattle, Washington. Of course, I am from Washington. Been here my whole life. Not Washington. If anyone says Washington, they are not from here. Apart from the car, obviously, it's my pride and joy, but I enjoy video games, philosophy, in a more neo sense. I dabble in some form of science, but mostly try and keep myself around the car space and firearms. I don't really have many hobbies outside of that, and yeah, I'm pretty much an encyclopedia for what I know and know nothing else if I don't. As I said, end goal of this channel is to document my growth as a car enthusiast, eventually a small business owner, hopefully, and to just try and spread the word about these niche cars that I love. The Honda Prelude in particular, I have yet to see another second-gen Honda Prelude in the wild. I've seen Accords, I've seen 4th and 5th gen Preludes. Never have I seen another second gen. Coming up on my favorite road here. Let's see if the camera goes wonky, because sometimes in these turns, it goes into portrait mode. I don't know if y'all can hear the engine. If you can, that's what it sounds like. This is, of course, my first time recording video. So far, I think I'm doing... Well, not my first time recording a video, but first time face on face. So far, I think I'm doing good enough. I do not know the speed I'm going. The speedometer in here is kind of broken. I think I'm doing around 35, I want to say, 37. Through these chicane-like roads on the Yelm Highway. And we are coming around a rather stiff roundabout here. Hoping that it doesn't make my camera go into portrait mode. Okie. The history of the Prelude. Let's talk about that. It is a rich car in every sense of the word. Apart from costs, it was actually rather cheap. I believe I did the math. It equates to about 28 grand brand new in today's market. Which is good for what it offered at the time. The Prelude was designed to break into the American market in a big way. The American market in the 80s was sorely lacking any effective, good, affordable sports coupes. And Honda decided, in a classic Honda move, that they could make it better than the Americans and they can make it cheaper. And I'd say they did. I mean, in terms of its competition, there wasn't much outside of maybe, in terms of the small blocks, long blocks, or whatever it's classified as, inline fours. I believe Honda's only competition was really other Hondas, maybe something from Subaru, not really anything from Mitsubishi. And then American-wise, they had to go up against V8s, but that's cheating. Plus, those really could only go straight. The Honda Prelude, of course, having double wishbone suspension, minimal body roll, and superb handling, has a 0 to 60 time about what modern Civics have, despite having substantially less horsepower. They also weigh about a ton less, weighing in at a crisp, on average, about 2,200 to 2,300 pounds, depending on features and gear, I presume, and how many fluids you're opting to run. It has a 16-gallon tank and gets about 28 miles per gallon with the headlights down. I'm not sure what it gets with them up. Probably about 24 if I had to reckon. The feel of the car, as I've said, suspension-wise is amazing, but actual driving, it's direct. There's no assists other than powered steering and powered brakes, so it feels like a one-on-one conversation with the car. You don't really have to deal with, like, modern Dodge products. They have that computer agent. No matter how hard you try, you're not in complete control of the car. The car always does its own thinking. Sometimes for better, sometimes for worse. The Prelude does not have that, and I love it. Compared to a Dodge Durango I used to drive, you tell it what to do, and it does it, no questions asked. It is as competent as you are. And I respect that in a car. I like being punished for my screw-ups, and I like being rewarded for my experience. This car has a high skill cap, and you get rewarded for learning it. Brakes are great, if not a little finicky to find proper brakes, brake pads in particular. Cheap, because they're tiny. And tiny brakes, along with the modern advancements in tires since 1985, or 1983, 1982, early 80s, when this car was designed, makes it so even though it has a complete lack of ABS, you don't really notice it, because the tires generate more grip than the brakes can consume. I have only locked up the brakes when I'm going out of my way to try and lock them up in a storm, just so I can know how to handle it if I accidentally lock up the brakes. So It's one of those cars where you don't have those assists, but you don't particularly notice that they're gone. The power steering is insanely sensitive. You could turn the entire wheel with just, like your pinky finger. But, I mean, I have no complaints about that. I know some people don't like it. They like heavier powered steering or no powered steering. Car I plan to get doesn't have powered steering, but the sensitive powered steering just doesn't really take away from the experience in any notable way. Is this light gonna turn? It's good. It's accurate. It would be if it weren't for a minor leak I have. Speaking of leaking parts, this car is nearly all original, missing the only thing that aren't original: radiator, no, the heater hose, the spark plug wires, distributor cap, and the exhaust have been changed. Seeing as the car is 37 years old, and I actually just shifted into 5th gear, seeing as the car is 37 years old, that is extremely minimal. No mods have been done to it, meaning it is probably one of the few Hondas in this world that's completely stock. For better or for worse, and I like it. It's a museum piece. I don't plan to make this thing fast. Not faster than it was from factory. 0 to 60 time in roughly about 8 seconds. I don't plan to make this faster. Mostly due to the fact that it's, as I said, collector's piece. My plan is to get a 1989 Toyota MR2 and try and get that up to about 250 horsepower. Hopefully. I'll give it a power to weight ratio of about 1 horsepower per 5 kilograms. And I don't know how realistic that is, but I mean, find out. This car's major features that you should note aren't working is I do not have a right blinker. Due to a multi-function switch issue, my rear right tail light is out for, I believe, a related reason. There's a little clock on the dash that you cannot see, and I will not show you, that does not work, but that's probably an easy fix. And I believe last week someone broke off one of my AC knobs, which is dandy. That's going to be just easy to find a replacement for. The parts of this car that do work are the pop-up headlights, and that's really all you need in a car from 1980-something, or 90-something, or just any car that has pop-up headlights, because pop-up headlights are pop-up headlights. One detail that should be noted is that at 60 miles an hour, I'm cruising at a comfortable 3,000 RPM. Loud, shaky, vibratory, but that's what you get when you buy a Honda. Comfortable at that mid-high range, and not comfortable at the low end. Torque, not a thing. Who needs torque? Benefits of having that high-end range, though. I have an 8K power range. Well, after 60, it drops off rapidly. I think, from what I can find, that is an exhaust issue. The exhaust could stand to be about another half-inch in diameter. But up till that range, roadwork ahead, that's new. But up to that range, it is great. Pretty even, very even power band, I'd say. You really start noticing the power at 2,500 RPM. 4K, it starts kicking a bit harder than 6K, red line. I'd imagine that's where you're making your about 110 horsepower, which isn't a lot, but once again, light chassis. Very light chassis. Minimalist, I'd say. And it still has semi-functional AC. Don't really know where the weight savings came in. I imagine the fact that it has exactly 2 airbags helps. And it has virtually no rear end. I have maybe 3 feet of passenger space back there. And the trunk is relatively small. But yeah, all in all, it's a efficient car. Honda didn't make this to be a family car. The person who owned it before me didn't use it as a family car. I can tell you that much. The only seat that has notable signs of wear is the driver's seat. So whoever owned this before me either didn't have friends, or he was smart enough not to let them drive with him. The car itself was purchased from a small shop in Seattle, and the shop got it from an auction, leading me to believe that whoever owned it beforehand died and donated it. I do not have much evidence for that, but it's a fun story to tell. I might have a haunted car. Who doesn't want a haunted car at the end of the day? Maybe it'll learn to drive itself one day, and I can finally say fuck you to Tesla. Which I will say anyway. Fuck you, Tesla. Yes, my first video. I'm sure that algorithm will love me just bursting in with profanities. Coming up on another roundabout here. This one's freshly installed, and should not be an issue. Water doesn't tend to gather on this, plus we're in a bit of a dry spell again, so I don't see myself spinning out. So far, I've only done minimum maintenance to it, outside of, normal maintenance. I've done the required maintenance, and then small reliability improvements, changing out. I'm gonna try, over the course of the next few months, change out most of the hoses, because it's 37 years old. Whatever's rubber is made out of dust at this point. After that, it's more or less done when it comes to engine parts, I hope. I'm probably going to try and get the paint job restored and some body work done, door dents, door dings. Average for a daily driver of this caliber, of this age. Whoever took care of it before me took care of it, but not. There was someone who loved their car, but they weren't an enthusiast, I'd say. They didn't treat this as like a museum piece or a testament to history, but they clearly cared for it. And I'm not gonna say that they should have taken care of it better. Took care of it to the extent that they would. I mean, it's a daily driver in Seattle. The fact that it's in the shape it's in is outstanding. Sure, the paint's peeling a bit, and there's a couple of dings, and yeah. But I mean, compare that. I've seen Civics from 2020 that are in worse shape than this, without getting into trash, just user error from maintenance side. Not waxing it, taking it through car washes too often. That kind of stuff. So this car is outstanding. And I hope to keep it that way until I inevitably get T-boned by a Ford F-150, because we all know that's how every Honda driver dies. And if I get T-boned, I am dying. I mean, look at this thing. From the 80s. I'm saying it a lot, but it is very 80s. And as much as I love that, the 80s barely discovered seatbelts. They barely knew what seatbelts were, let alone advanced safety mechanisms, let alone a door made out of anything but hopes and dreams. The headlights, luckily enough, I did find an LED conversion kit for them. So that is going to take a little bit out of, the original. That's going to make some Honda fanboys mad, but I would like to be able to see. That being said, it's still beautiful. All in all, it's a great car to drive in situations like this. It is midnight. It is freezing out. Literally freezing. 32 degrees Fahrenheit, 0 degrees Celsius. It is a bit harder to start in the cold than I expected, but not as hard as you'd think. It's kind of in that awkward zone. You just pump the gas a few times and it will start. If you do not pump that gas, it will not start. Or if it does, it will be very grumpy about it. The all-around experience driving, it was my first car, was a 2003 GMC Envoy. About the exact XL, GMC Envoy XL. About the exact opposite of what you expect from this, compared to this. It is 6,000 pounds roughly, like 5,300 I think. No traction control, no stability control, horrible traction control, Rear-wheel drive, about 200 horsepower. Designed to flip. Snap oversteer is a common issue with those models. Because it's an early 2000s GMC product, the airbags were less than functional. I discovered that when I flipped the shit out of it and spun like a Beyblade. And luckily, nobody involved was injured. And after quite a bit of trying to convince my mom it was a good idea for me to get a car from the 80s, we found this. Great condition, great price. Paid $4,000 for it after taxes. Small enough and weak enough to where she didn't think I'd get a speeding ticket in it. I did, 90 miles an hour in a 70. And I fell in love with it, and she fell in love with it. Reminds me of a car she had when she was a little older than I. It's just perfect. I'd say perfect first car. Perfect second car. Your first car, you're gonna wreck. Don't get a car like this for your first car. I firmly believe everyone's first car should be early 2000s and something you're not attached to. Get a car that you like, but you don't care for. I mean, you want something to maintain, but not something that you'll cry when it inevitably dies. And then your second car, you'll have more experience. You'll have, hopefully, more money, more ability to maintain it. Using that experience and your, hopefully, acquainted skills with your chassis of choice, you should be able to maintain it. Care for it. Develop that emotional bond, and pray to whatever God you believe in that you do not total it or get T-boned by a Ford F-150. And then your third car should always be practical. I'm planning to get maybe Subaru WRX or a Jeep Cherokee from the 90s to, you know, at the end of the day, this is a Honda front wheel drive, no advanced assist, which is fun, except for the fact that I live in an area that gets below freezing for about half the year. So black ice is a major concern. So I need something with either all-wheel drive or four-wheel drive. On the topic of all wheels, one thing I forgot. This car came in 3 different trim levels. You had your base model, your SI, which had fuel injection instead of a dual carbureted engine. There was also a 2-liter, but the engine head itself is identical, so you can, it's a relatively easy conversion, honestly. And then after the SI, you had the 4WS, 4-wheel steering. I do not like the 4WS. It is bad. It is unreliable due to it being Honda's first experiment with 4-wheel steering. So it's unreliable, as I said, and it is costly when it inevitably dies. Which it will inevitably die after probably a few thousand miles. For those few thousand miles, handling will be superb, even for a Honda. I do not fancy needing to spend that much money to completely rebuild my drivetrain system every few thousand miles. Or probably 10,000 miles if I had to be honest. It is a Honda. I do not like it. Expensive, overrated, expensive. So, whenever I say I have a Prelude, anyone who knows what a Prelude is assumes I have that. I do not, and I am happy about it. I wish I had the SI, if I'm going to be honest. It'd be a hell of a lot easier to do a lot of maintenance on it. And probably get a few extra horsepower without, doing anything too major. But I do not have the SI. Base model, dual carbureted, which is a fun party trick. And the air filter is a bit annoying, but hey, cold air intake from factory. So that's about all for this video. Probably gonna get 4 views. 5 views. 5 years. Yeah, that's about it. See ya.